Hi guys, I just wanted to welcome you guys to the presentation that I'll be doing called Well Mind, Well Body. I was asked by Andrea Can of Chatmore British International School to do this talk. They do have a fundraising event where they have a community message that they like to get out, and this year they wanted to focus on a healthy mind for kids, and I was invited to talk, and I'm absolutely excited about doing this talk for you guys. This seems to be very timely talk that we're going to be doing, and the last year or so, hearing of kids, taking their lives due to, depression or anxiety, I feel like, it's more relevant than now. Over the past year, I would say at least 3 years, I've seen a significant increase of preteens and teenagers coming to my practice with issues around mental health and anxiety. And so I'm really excited to have this, to do this presentation for you. So let's get started. All right. So as I mentioned, the Well Mind, Well Body talk is in collaboration with Chatmore British International School. Thank you, Andrea Can, again for setting that up. And all right. So I wanted to just explain a little bit about who I am and what what I do. A lot of people are a bit confused by that. I consider myself a holistic pediatrician and a functional medicine doctor. What does that all mean? It pretty much means this. When I finished medical school and I trained, and I went to do my post-medical school training, I took on 2 different paths, which were internal medicine and pediatrics. And essentially that means that, I was seeing both kids and babies and also older adults who had chronic medical issues and problems. Now, where the holistic part came in was a little bit different. So I've been, so when I finished my residency training, like I said, I was boarded in internal medicine, I was boarded in pediatrics, and for a few years before I had my daughter, I was a pediatrician without any kids. And what is really interesting about being a pediatrician with no kids and young is that people brought their kids to see me, which I thought was kind of cool. It's like taking your car to a mechanic without a car, but somehow it worked out, and I'm really grateful that they came to see me. But one of the kind of pivotal moments that I had during that period was for example, was a condition called reflux. And what we used to do for kids and babies who had reflux is that we would give them a medication, all right? And this medication, every doctor was prescribing it at the time because this was pretty much the go-to drug if you had a reflux or colicky kid, that sort of stuff. So in my residency, I would highly prescribe this medication. And a couple of years into my residency, one of my attendants had came and did runs and was like, hey, this medication that we've been using is now got this black box warning. And the black box warning was because it was causing this permanent brain essentially damage for kids, where they had these movement disorders. So they uncontrollably would start to move their arms and their legs. And that wasn't cool. So, a baby who just had reflux and colic, something that they will grow out within a couple of months, could end up potentially having this permanent, like, lifelong effect. And I think at that point, I was just like, okay, we could and should be doing better, as conventional pediatricians than to be relying so heavily on a medication that potentially as we found out later could cause so much side effects. So fast forward to me having my own daughter and giving birth to my own daughter. I had the experience of reflux again, and that was with my daughter, and it was so profound. And she started refluxing so early that she was refluxing pretty much as soon as she came out. And I remember like in that, I just delivered my baby haze with very dim lights, next to me, my baby was sleeping in her cot, and I could hear her choking and gagging on what little breast milk she just had gotten. But and to only look over and see her with the milk all over her mouth and on her onesie and in her cot. So it continued on actually, and she continued to have reflux issues, and it progressed to colic, and I could only calm her, or me and my husband, could only calm her if we bounced her a certain way. And we got so strong, but at the same time, during that training period, I swear there was times where our arms felt like they was gonna break. And I know medically it's not possible for your arms to break from repeated reps, but I have to say that I really felt like my arms were gonna break off. So we tag teamed that whole experience, and 3 weeks in, and about at 3 a.m., I did what every tired mom would do, was I Googled. And I Googled something like help, my baby has reflux and colic, and some suggestions came up about how to switch your diet. And I took their suggestions to heart. I cut out some things in my diet, and things with my baby started getting better. And, and because at that time, it wasn't about being a doctor. I was totally in mom mode. And I knew that there was no medication that they was going to offer me that, I was going to give my child, because one, I had waited too long because I had issues with infertility. So I had waited too long and worked too hard to have my precious bundle of joy. And since then, she's been my catalyst to being a more holistic practitioner, and which is why it's been my mission to empower the parents that I work with to, one, use your intuition about your kid and take control of their health. Also, know that there's things that you can prevent, and that prevention is also very important. And also that you don't have to rely on toxic medications that can end up having crazy side effects. So let's go on to the presentation. Okay, alrighty. So I kind of did the first, this is a bit of the outline. I want to talk to you guys about the trends of mental health illness and signs of stress, anxiety, and depression in kids, and also our natural remedies that can help to prevent these and really can be an early intervention. Okay, and I plan to have some question and answer period, because this is not a live event anymore. You can feel free to just direct message me through Facebook. The trends of mental health issues in kids. So I'm gonna breeze through these things because I do want to keep this presentation to a certain within an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. So what you need to know is ADHD, behavior problems, anxiety, and depression are now the most common mental health issues, and these are the most commonly diagnosed mental health issues. So if you have a child who has any of these diagnoses, don't feel like you are all alone, okay? Because you are not. So some of the conditions are diagnosed together, and some are and so what that means is that it's not unusual to for a kid to be diagnosed with ADHD and say anxiety, or anxiety and even depression, or so those sorts of things. So they can be diagnosed together. Anxiety and depression are increasing over time, and because they're increasing over time, we can actually see that we're using more prescription medications than what we used to use. So prescription medication for mental health issues, particularly in kids, is definitely on the rise and increasing. So mental, behavioral, developmental disorders begin in early childhood, and we can see them now as early as 2 years old. The trend that we do see is that with depression and anxiety, this is more seen in the older kids, so your preteens and your teenagers, and those younger school age kids are more likely to be diagnosed with a behavior problem. So signs and symptoms of unresolved stress. Okay, so I decided to more or less focus a slide on signs and symptoms of unresolved stress, because usually it's stress and unresolved stress that precipitates a mental health issue for a kid. So we usually see these signs and symptoms before even we see anything that is related to mental health, and there actually is pretty much a really huge overlap. So the signs and symptoms of unresolved stress essentially are the same as what it is for mental health issues. And so this, if your child is experiencing any of these signs and symptoms, then this is what you should pay attention, that it may be some sort of stressful event or some mental health issue that your child is struggling with. So for physical complaints, can be a decreased appetite, can be complaints of headaches, chest pain, blurry vision, dry mouth, unusual perspiration. So you're generally sweating is what I heard. So lots of sweating, nightmares, sleep disturbances, unable to either fall asleep, or maybe they wake up many times through the night, or they wake up and they're unable to go back to sleep, or vague stomach pain. That's a very, very common one. I noticed. So the emotional signs will be worrying, inability to relax, unusually clingy. So want to probably be with you, spend with you, where as before they might have separated from you very easily. Anger outbursts. You could definitely see this in all ages. Crying, whining, inability to control their emotions, which there's a typo there. Hyperactivity, and difficulty concentrating is all the things that we can see with kids who are dealing with some sort of stress. All right, so what I wanted to do right now is start to give you some ideas and tips that you can use, and I think that these will be relevant for any age kid. So from 2 to 22, I think you'll find these very helpful, and so holistic health and natural remedies. All right. Let's see. What not to feed your kids. Okay. So I'm going to start off with the hardest thing. Okay, the hardest tip I think for all parents is to think about what is when I give them the advice that things that your kid are eating, you should probably not be feeding them. And so what some of those foods are probably pretty obvious to you from what I'm going to say, but I'll give you some highlights of the foods. And the reason why I have to mention these foods is because these foods have been known and linked to cause anxiety, depression, mood disturbances in kids, and have the scientific background or basis to kind of support them. Okay, so one of the big top foods is gluten. Okay, and gluten for which is a protein that is found in wheat, and so it's in pretty much all products that involve wheat or wheat flour. Essentially is very inflammatory to the body, which means that it also causes inflammation to the brain. People have a lot of intolerances to it. You can have people who are outright allergic to it, but we see that causes mood disturbances a lot. Okay, and I personally experienced that, and I personally experienced that with my daughter. That was one of the foods that I had to cut out when she was refluxing, and it continues to be a food that I have a challenge with her. I don't think it really causes any reflux issues for her, but she will definitely get mood disturbances, crying, clinginess, and all sorts of stuff just because of that. So gluten is a really big one. Another one is caffeine. All right, you don't want to feed your kids caffeine because caffeine can make them anxious and can cause behavioral problems. Also, refined sugar. So foods with lots of white sugar in them will also cause problem. And even if they're getting a lot of sugars from fruits, just that added sugar can be too much for their body. Another thing would be some of the yucky oils that are associated with fast foods can also cause kids to have issues with mental health. And other processed foods, particularly one of the common things I see would be the artificial preservatives and artificial colorants can I like to blame it on the red dye number 40 or yellow number 5, but these artificial preservatives and colorants can cause issues. Another one would be soy. Soy can also cause issues as well. Okay, all right. So if you do have a kid who is experiencing any sort of issues that you think may mean that they may be having some emotional mental health imbalance, think about taking those things out of their diet. And it really would be good, even if your kid is not, to try to not have a lot of those foods in their diet to also prevent them to have any mental health issues. Okay, so let's go on to the next slide, which is what to feed your kids. All right, okay, so after you've kind of thought to yourself, all right, Dr. Peets just told me everything I can, now what am I going to feed my kids? Well, I'll tell you what, there is still food that they can eat. And some of the food that they can eat would be foods that are what I deem as superfoods. And these foods are going to be high in omegas, so things like chia seeds and flax seeds and wild-caught salmon and walnuts. So your nuts can have lots of omega-3s, which is really good for the kid's brain. Also, there's certain fruits and vegetables that are also really good, such as spinach, broccoli, raspberries, blueberries. all of those you want to make sure that you're getting in your kids' diet. Let me make sure I have all of them. Spirulina, dark chocolate, all these superfoods are actually really, really good. I like that. I like dark chocolate. I kind of use that for myself, but it has a nice calming effect. And I think that's why dark chocolate and chocolate is so popular. But that's something that you can give your kids as well. Alrighty, so those are the foods. So really, you want to in all think about whole foods, foods that are not coming out of packages. Try to get lots of vegetables more than fruits, and that's pretty much, and has some omega-3 healthy fats in there. And if you're gonna get those omega-3s from food, all the better. The next thing that is really helpful for kids as far as helping them to prevent or to treat anxiety issues or depression would be your B vitamins. Okay, so B vitamins are what we help to produce some of our happy hormone, or their happy hormone inducing foods. So these would be we get our B vitamins from two sources, some from vegetables and some from meat products. So think of your green vegetables, and these will be like asparagus, spinach, avocados as well have lots of B vitamins. And then the others will be your meat products, so think like chicken, grass-fed beef, those sorts of things. Even some oranges, you can see some B vitamins in oranges and citrus as well. Okay, let's see. So once upon a time, a long time ago, some Chinese dudes and some Chinese dudettes decided to dry some leaves and see what they would do for their body. And the results have been good, and we've been drinking herbs ever since, essentially. And mainly because these ancient medicinal men and women in China proved through their own lifestyle that there was longevity and there was a healthiness to their methods, and so obviously that's kind of caught on worldwide. And so one of the things as a holistic practitioner, it's cool to use this ancient herbal based medicine, or kind of learn about it, because it's really hard to overdo it. You don't really have to worry about any toxic side effects from it, or any overdosing or any of those issues. Okay, so let's talk about some of these Chinese herbs. We have chamomile and lavender. These two are some of my favorite. Lavender is really popular, and I feel like it's so popular that it's almost in everything. It's probably in like tons of baby products and tons of lotions and things like that. And it's essentially because of its calming effects and its ability to relax you. Chamomile is quite similar, may not be as popular because sometimes you don't get as much scents and fragrances of chamomile, but essentially it's very similar in its effects. Just to make sure I have my notes. So yeah. So how you can get chamomile and lavender is usually in a tea form, and for your older kids and your preteens, you can easily, I think they will easily drink it if you offer it to them. Sometimes you have to be a little bit more creative if you've got a younger kid, but you really want to encourage them to maybe have some chamomile and lavender tea. This would be great, going through a study period, or any type of exam period or stressful period that they might be going through, either having to do maybe with home personally, or with school. And one thing I will say about when it comes to herbal teas, you really want to make sure that they are organic, okay? Because if you don't get the organic teas, you could be potentially taking in a lot of pesticides, and that's also not healthy for you. All right. So the next herb I want to talk to you guys about is peppermint. Peppermint is really good. So peppermint is been known for stress and anxiety, and one thing that's great about peppermint, as it's supposed to calm and relax you, is that it also has some added benefits that it also works well with indigestion, so it's good for the digestive tract. And it can also have benefits to clear nasal sinuses. So if you had a kid that happened to be have hay fever, seasonal allergies, those sorts of things, then having peppermint or peppermint tea would be good for that. Also for acne, because it helps to clear the skin, using a peppermint tea will be good as well. So again, you want to get your teas organic. The next tip I want to talk to you guys about, or the next remedy to think about and have on your radar for your kid, is the environment and the nature that and the nature, which means the outdoor environment that they're in. So indoors, let's talk about indoors. So our kids spend a lot of time indoors, and this is something that you should pay attention to. So if you could imagine yourself in a room that's dark and it's full of clutter, and maybe doesn't smell really good, then you may find that you actually probably feel, even just maybe picturing that in your mind, you feel like not so great. And then imagine walking into a room that's light and bright, and it's open, and it's got a good clean maybe breeze flowing through. You probably feel a lot better. And what you're experiencing is the effect that a bad environment can have on your mental psyche. And so with just like yourself, our kids are very sensitive to the type of environment that they are in. And so to help to keep their moods lifted, and to keep them their minds clear and on a positive side, it's really good to make sure that the indoor environment is light and bright and open. And it's what I have found that it's kind of refreshing when I'm going to visit my kids' schools, is that the nurseries and I think the schools do really, really good, awesome job, at least in my experience. And all my kids have been in really nice, well-lit, open space, hardly no cluttered spaces. And I think that that's really conducive to them, learning and thriving in that environment. And it's not just important for their school environment or wherever they're learning, but it's also important for their home environment. So you want to be conscious that their bedroom has the same flow. Now, at my house, when I was getting ready to have my last baby, my third child, I really took to decluttering and getting rid of a lot of stuff in my daughter's rooms that essentially had accumulated. And it's funny because I thought that they was going to be really upset about me essentially, giving away and throwing away about half of their stuff. But they really wasn't, and they actually, my oldest actually thanked me and said, "Oh, Mom, thank you. I love my room. I'm glad that thank you for doing my room for me," and that was really nice. So feel free to Marie Kondo, and if you don't know who she is, she's that cute lady on Netflix that's tidying up everybody's house. But Marie Kondo your room. if you got a teenager, help them to, get involved, and a young adult, and really help to teach them that. So when they transition, out, and maybe they're going to go to college, or, maybe even maybe they go away earlier in boarding school, that they kind of know the benefits of keeping their space nice and open, clean and bright. The next thing about the indoor, next thing about the indoor environment that I want you guys to pay attention to is Wi-Fi. And your kids' exposure to Wi-Fi, which is electromagnetic radiation, particularly in their bedroom and where they're sleeping. So electromagnetic radiation, we know, can start to have a negative effect on people. Okay, it's not as, I think people know it's out there. I think people kind of can understand if they hold their cell phone up to their head all the time, that there is a potential that they can have brain cancer. Maybe it doesn't stop them, but I think that they may think about it. But that electromagnetic radiation is also known to have other effects on the brain, and can cause hyperactivity in kids, can cause fatigue, headaches, and those sorts of things. And so one of the things that I'm pretty kind of a stickler about is making sure that, I don't have any sort of wireless routers in our bedrooms, in our house. And what is also a really good thing that you can do is to make sure that you're limiting that exposure, and helping your kid to really thrive is making sure that during the times where you're sleeping, you can turn off your Wi-Fi. That really helps. And so think about that. Now, when it comes to your outdoors, it's not that you have to change anything out there. You just have to get outside. You have to get your kid outside, and preferentially outdoors, maybe sometimes barefoot so they can ground a bit, but just getting them to kind of be exposed to sunlight is really good. Fresh air, open space, that's going to help their mood. It's going to help to prevent any anxiety and depression. I know that, we have a lot of indoor activities, and that really kind of limits our kids, especially as they're getting up into their older years, how much time they do spend outdoor. But really try to encourage their preteens, your teenagers, your young adults, perhaps they can study outside. Perhaps they can social media outside, even, whatever it takes. Maybe they need they can have a lunch outside. You want them to really try to make sure that they are still staying in tune with the outdoors and having a nice relationship with outdoors. And, they're old enough where you can explain to them the benefits of it. I think with the younger kids, it's probably a lot easier to get them outside. You just give them a swing and they just want to go for it, or a slide, or a tree to climb. But I know, again, you have to be a little bit more creative with your older kids. So, talk to them about why they should be going outside and really encourage that. Let's see. So, the next remedy, or natural remedy, falls under the essential oils and the aromatherapy, and that brings back some of the nice herbs that we was talking about earlier, like chamomile and lavender. So when it comes to essential oils and the aromatherapy, what essentially is you're aromatizing these very small like particles, and as you breathe them in, they can cross the blood-brain barrier and actually affect different centers of your brain that will give you a calming and relaxing state, or or provoke feelings of happiness. And some of these essential oils that are known to calm and improve mental health and reduce stress is chamomile, geranium, lavender, frankincense, rose, ylang ylang, jasmine, vetiver. I've myself used a few of these, and you can use them a few ways, and you could just kind of go online to just see how you can use essential oil. But the most common way I use in my house is using them as an oil diffuser. But now for kids, they have jewelry that you could put essential oils. You can even, they have that even for adults, or even your preteen or your teenagers, your young adults can use it that way. I think one of the best gifts I gave to my goddaughter as she was getting ready for college was a rose oil roll-on. And again, what's so special about rose oil is it helps you to have not only happy thoughts and happy feelings and to calm anxiety, but it can also help how people kind of interact with you, because they smell it on you. They will also receive you in a warm and friendly manner. So, definitely use these, and you can use them in a different ways, and you can even use them to rub on. We also incorporate our essential oils into our body butters that we sell in our office. They would have lavender and things like that, which helps, and chamomile, which helps to soothe and calm. Okay, so activity. All right, activity is important, and many people think that the activity is most important because we think of activity helps to maintain a healthy weight, or helps you to achieve a healthy weight. But when I'm talking about activity in this setting, I'm really more interested in the effects of activity has on actually the brain health and the mental state, and helping to increase those hormones that make you feel more euphoric, so more happy. It helps to relieve stress. So lots of studies around that and how it can elevate the mood. And kids of all ages should be doing some sort of physical activity, ideally outside if they can. Obviously, it's not necessarily always got to be outside. I understand you have lots of kids who do things like dance or karate, or basketball. There's a lot of stuff that I know is inside, but and it really, really don't matter. I mean, it could be yoga, it could be swimming, it could be cricket and things like that. It's just that you want to encourage your kids to stay active and have some sort of activity in their life. I feel the younger kids do this really, really well. Primary school, middle school. And it's done to me, I feel when I see kids starting to take on more studies, they sometimes drop their more their extracurricular activities, which are probably have more physical activity to them. And so, as your kid is, especially if you have a really academic kid and who's studying a lot, or maybe you don't, but you just really want to try to get them to do some sort of activity in their life. And it doesn't even have to cost anything. It could be just walking on the trail and that sort of stuff. So and hopefully that healthy habit of activity will be something that they would carry on as they get older, and say if they go off to college, they're already in that habit of using activity. All right, the gut-brain connection. So this is a little bit of a cycle back, and maybe this could have been the first slide, because this slide kind of pulls together why there's certain foods that you do eat and there's certain foods that you don't eat. All right, so what you should know about the gut, okay, where you're doing all that nice digestion, is that 90% of our serotonin it is made in the gut. And serotonin is this special neurotransmitter that means that it's this brain signaling, or this signaling like messenger in our body, let's call it a messenger in our body, that helps to promote our well-being and our feelings of happiness. And it does a lot of other stuff like help you learn, helps mood, cognition, focus. So serotonin is a huge player. Now, if 90% of it is being produced in our gut, then you want your gut to be as healthy as possible so you can produce this serotonin, or your kid can produce this serotonin. And so what often you see is that when you eat these bad foods, right, that you're not necessarily supposed to be eating, that inflame the gut, your serotonin production obviously will go down. And conversely, if you're eating really good foods that's gonna keep your gut nice and healthy and keep your gut doing the job that it needs to do, which is pumping out this serotonin, then you're gonna feel good. So you are what you eat. You're gonna eat crap, you're gonna feel crappy, and your kids are gonna feel crappy if they're eating crappy. And if they're eating good food that's really meant for them, then they're gonna feel great and awesome. And what I feel like, where I see the diet going off, I feel like there's two critical periods in a kid's life where the diet just kind of goes all crappy, and I really think it has an effect on their life, is when the kid goes 2, and I think that's, in my belief, this is where we get these terrible 2s, and this is my hypothesis. But I have a feeling, I feel like what I've seen and in my experience is that kids, between 0 and 2 years old, 24 months old, they have these amazing diets. The parents are very conscious about what they're eating. They're not feeding them, fast foods and lots of sugar and things like that. They're eating lots of vegetables and they're eating lots of fruits and whole foods. And then all of a sudden at 2 years old, all of the adult foods start creeping in, and it could be anything from cotton candies and lollipops and this and that and snowballs, and it just kind of, I think the diet just gets completely derailed. And I really do think that some of that crankiness and that bitterness is just kind of getting used to foods that they probably ought to not be eating in the first place. And then so that's the first time I think that the diet can kind of get derailed for a kid. I think the second time is when they go away from home, but and probably more so to college, because now they're eating whatever they want, which means it could be fast food all day, every day, and I think that that's another shock to their bodies, and that's another shock to their system. And on top of that, whatever stress they have of like their studies and their school. And so to me, in my mind, I'm not surprised that kids, who are leaving school and are in college are struggling with issues as far as mental health. And and it's not unusual for me to hear that a kid's left and gone away and their parents are like, well, they're not doing well and suffering. And I really think that the diet might contribute to that. So I think, for your kid, that whatever they might be experiencing as far as mood could definitely be related to what they're eating and their gut health. All right. Flow state, creative, anxiety relief, the next remedy, and we're getting to the end very, I've got a couple of more remedies to tell you guys about, so hang in there. So when we talk about flow state and creativity, when our minds are in a state where we're concentrating and we're focused on things, and we're pretty much kind of being mindful and in the moment, then we're actually helping to relieve stress and to promote a sense of well-being. And this could look like anything. This could be as simple as reading, which is what you see the girl doing. It could be doing something like an art therapy or art project, or any type of something with your hands and physical, something that you can completely kind of delve into and take your mind off for other things and other tasks. And it looks different for a lot of other people, but one of the mainstream kind of flow state exercises and tools that you see now are those I call them adult coloring books, but mandala coloring books, where they have this kind of intricate drawing and you color on. That's something very, very, I guess, you can get an older school age kid or preteen or teenagers or young adults kind of involved in that sort of activity, especially if they tend to be very artsy. But what you really want to kind of, I guess, encourage a kid to have some sort of creative outlet or flow state outlet, something that they can kind of really focus and concentrate on, even if it's a simple thing like read it. So another form of flow state or kind of being in a mindful practice is yoga and meditation. These yoga and meditation, for a lot of reasons, I think people understand now that they have a lot of health benefits. I think that we kind of don't think of this as something that our kids can be doing, but it totally is. And the sooner that you start them into doing something that helps them to mindfully move their body and mindfully focus on their breathing, can help them to get in a practice that they can start to calm their own anxiety or anxious thoughts and feelings themselves. And that's a really, really good tool to have. So, one thing I would say is that when it comes to choosing yoga classes, especially if you have a kid that's interested in doing yoga, is making sure that the yoga does include that mindful breathing, those mindful breathing exercises and time. Not all yoga classes will focus on that, and so you want to do that. And then meditation. Meditation you can teach to a kid probably as young as 4, doing a guided meditation, and it can really serve them as they get into their preteens and their teenagers. And you can start this anytime. So if you're not got a 4-year-old and you got a 14-year-old, start there. And it's just probably as simple as maybe YouTubing a guided meditation and just having them sit there and listen to it. They also have series that can teach them to breathe. I think with my kids, we was able to start to help them to breathe. So I've my 3-year-old, we would do breathing exercises. Elmo, there's a little video by Elmo that started to teach them how to belly breathe. So like I said, like a lot of these remedies and things that you could do, it could be for a 2-year-old all the way up to a 22-year-old. Given that, your parents, you just want to help to expose them and to give them some extra resources to kind of deal and live in this stressful world that we are in. All right. All right, so we are almost finished, and you guys are doing really good and really awesome to be hanging in there with me, and I appreciate your time. So as I had mentioned earlier in the presentation, that I intended to take some of your questions, and if you really have any burning questions and would love to ask them, then feel free to message me through Facebook, and I'll do my best to answer your questions. I wanted to introduce my team because I'm grateful. I do this, with the support of, and in my holistic pediatric practice, I have the support of these amazing ladies. So, Dr. Famous, she's my right-hand man. She's a functional medicine practitioner like myself. She's my nutrition guru. She is not a nutritionist. Do not get confused. She is a nutritionist like plus 20 if you want to kind of give her that label. But so she's way more than that. Dr. Famous. Then it's Beth Hollis, who's the physiotherapist extraordinaire. She does yoga. She does acupuncture. She's a heart math specialist or a breathing specialist, and that means that she helps our patients to really teach them how to breathe, and so they can start to do their breathing work to actually relieve their stress. And then we have fabulous Rolisa Camille, who's the newest member to our team, but brings so much as the rapid transformational therapist and health coach. So thank you guys for listening. Those 3 cuties are my babies. That is Camila, Yara, and Imani. So thank you. And if you were interested in getting the presentation tips, as I have mentioned, I think we put together all the natural remedies on in a document for you guys, so you don't have to worry about writing down notes, or if you miss something, you can get them all from oceanrockwellness.com/wellmind. So head over to there. You essentially will give us your email, and we will send those to you. Please make sure that you confirm your email when you do get our initial email. That helps us to be able to send you emails. Okay, so if you don't get it, if you have any trouble getting stuff from us, it's probably because you didn't confirm. That's a really huge step. So confirm your email. Head over to oceanrockwellness.com/wellmind and get that. We wish your family all the best in health and happiness. If you happen to be available and doing nothing and would like to get outside and start to work on some stress relieving tips with your kids, then check out Chatmore's Leaping Leprechaun Fun Walk, which is happening Friday the 15th of March at 9:30 a.m. at the Arboretum. I'm pretty sure they'll love to have you, and I am really glad that I was able to do this presentation, Well Mind, Well Body. I think it should be the first of many more. So if there's any topics that you might think, I think I might do some more of these. So if there's any topic that's burning, if you have any questions, if you have any feedback, send it to me. I'd love to hear from you guys. Bye bye.